Hey everyone, Errol here from At the Edge, Lessons in Culture and Leadership. Today I'm talking to leaders, coaches and consultants about designing a cultural workout for your team or organisation. It's one of my favourite topics, so please stay tuned. Culture is a muscle. This has to be one of my favourite sayings. So much so, I'm sure my clients get sick of those words coming out of my mouth so frequently. But the metaphor is so apt because the same methods we use to get muscles stronger, fitter, and faster also apply to building more effective and high performance cultures. There are three ways that culture is a muscle. So I'm going to go through those one at a time. The first way that culture is a muscle is because the frequency of our workout is critical to our success. Let's say you're my running coach and I say, hey coach, I want to run a marathon in 6 months' time. So I'm going to train every 2 weeks. You're probably going to respond and say, Errol, that just ain't going to cut it. I might reply and say, coach, I think you misunderstood me. When I said every 2 weeks, I meant I'm going to run for 10 hours every second Sunday. You're going to tell me, Errol, running for shorter periods of time, but more frequently is probably going to get you a better outcome. But how often do we think of culture in a similar way? We work on our culture at a pre-season camp or at an executive offsite every 12 months. And then we hardly think about it or let alone work on it. Just like a muscle, to optimize culture, we need to work on it frequently. This requires leaders to really understand what a cultural workout looks like. Yes, a cultural workout can be a half-a-day session with a coach or a consultant, but a cultural workout can also be team members talking about which behaviors make them feel more safe and less safe. It can be making sure that everybody in a team meeting, even the introverts and the quieter people, feel like their voices are heard and valued. It can also be understanding and unpacking key aspects of culture like engagement, belonging, and inclusion. So based on these principles, what would be the ideal frequency of a cultural workout for your team or organization? The second way that culture is a muscle, because in order to build capability, we have to be slightly uncomfortable. So back to you being my running coach. What if I said, hey coach, I know you said to run 5 kilometers, but I ran 2 kilometers and got tired, so I walked home. You're probably going to say, Errol, we only get fitter through a progressive overload approach to training. What that means is when we train, we push ourselves, we make ourselves slightly uncomfortable, we challenge ourselves. And in the process, we break those muscle fibers down a little bit. Not to the point of rupture, we just do a little bit of damage to them. And then overnight, the body in its wisdom repairs those muscle fibers and repairs them a little bit better, stronger, faster. This is the only way we really build capability. Culture is exactly the same thing. We have to make ourselves slightly uncomfortable so we can challenge those old belief systems, those old ways of working, those old ways of relating to each other. Challenge them not to the point of rupture, but just so we can revision them and reimagine them into more effective ways. So based on these principles, how can you support and challenge your team members to be slightly uncomfortable in the way they approach their cultural workouts? The third way that culture is a muscle is because there's a big difference between talking about working out and going to the gym and actually lifting. We frequently talk about culture, but how often do we actually do culture? A great example of doing culture is providing constructive feedback. Let's face it, very few people like giving constructive feedback, and even less people like receiving constructive feedback. So we need to think of giving constructive feedback like a muscle. The more we work it out, the better we get at it. In fact, providing constructive feedback is also like the second principle where being uncomfortable is really important. So in the way you think about a cultural workout for your team or organization, how do you construct it so people are focused on doing culture as well as talking about culture? So in summary, culture is a muscle in three ways. Firstly, the frequency of our workouts are important. Secondly, we need to be slightly uncomfortable in how we approach our cultural workouts. And thirdly, being mindful of the difference between talking about culture and actually doing culture. So based on these principles, how do you construct the most effective cultural workout for your team or organization? Over to you.